One thing before this story starts. When the moment hits you, and it will, drop one word in the comments, just one. Whatever you felt. I read every single one, every time. Now, what follows is a document that was never meant to be made public. It is the Internal Revision History of Species Assessment File 7492, maintained by the Galactic Civilizational Rating Bureau, the organization responsible for assigning capability ratings to every known species in this galactic region. The Bureau rates species on a scale from 1 to 10 across 17 categories. The ratings determine insurance premiums for interstellar shipping lanes, risk assessments for colonial expansion operations, diplomatic priority classifications, and a dozen other things that the smooth functioning of the galactic community depends on. The Bureau has been operating for 40,000 years. It has never, in 40,000 years, been wrong about a rating by more than half a point in either direction. Read what happened when it tried to rate the humans. Initial Assessment Species File 7492. Classification Homo sapiens. Common Designation Humans. Home System Sol. Primary Inhabited Body Third Planetary Body from Star. Assessment Date Galactic Standard Cycle 44211. Lead Assessor Senior Rating Analyst Veth Kasorn 43rd Year of Service. Assessment Team 4 Junior Analysts 2 Data Verification Specialists 1 Translation Consultant. Methodology Standard 17 Category Assessment Protocol version 12.4 in continuous use since cycle 38,000. Data sources 300 years of long-range observational records, intercepted communication archive, translated written material sampling, historical record review. Assessment confidence level high, projected accuracy within standard deviation. The Bureau notes that this assessment was completed on schedule and within the standard resource allocation for a Class 4 species evaluation. Capability RATINGS Initial Assessment. Category 1 Physical Capability 2.1 out of 10. Justification. The species presents below average strength, speed, and durability relative to all documented Class 4 species at comparable developmental stages. No natural armor. Limited environmental range. Regenerative capacity minimal. Category 2 Technological Capability 2.8 out of 10. Justification Early digital and early space age technology. No faster-than-light research detected. Energy production inefficient. No energy shielding. No weapons registering above Class 2 threat threshold. Category 3 Organizational Capability 4.1 out of 10. Justification Large-scale social organization documented. Multiple governmental structures operating simultaneously. Coordination capacity present but inconsistent. Category 4 Resource Base 3.3 out of 10. Justification Single inhabited world with limited satellite and neighboring planetary presence. Resources adequate for current developmental stage. Expansion capacity constrained by current technology. Category 5 Military Capability 1.9 out of 10. Justification No interstellar military capacity. Intraplanetary conflict capability only. Weapons systems pose no threat to any spacefaring civilization. Composite rating 2.6 out of 10. Classification Non-significant. Recommended action Standard monitoring protocol review cycle every 50 galactic standard years. Bureau confidence in this assessment 97.4%. Note from lead assessor Veth Kasorn, this was a routine assessment. The species presents no anomalies requiring special attention. Recommend filing and moving to next evaluation. First revision, Species File 7492. Revision date, Galactic Standard Cycle 44248, 37 cycles after initial assessment. Reason for revision, data anomaly flagged by automated monitoring system. Nature of anomaly, advancement rate in technological capability category exceeds projected parameters by factor of 1.7. Explanation from lead assessor Veth Kasorn. The automated monitoring system has flagged an apparent discrepancy between projected and observed technological advancement rates for species file 7492. After review, this office concludes that the discrepancy is within acceptable variance when accounting for the compounding effects of their recently implemented global information exchange network. The network has accelerated knowledge transfer across their civilization in a manner that our initial models did not fully account for. We are revising the technological capability rating upward by 0.4 points to reflect current observed capability. No other changes to the assessment are indicated at this time. The Bureau's composite rating for species file 7492 is revised to 3 out of 10. Classification remains non-significant. Bureau confidence in revised assessment 94.1%. Note from lead assessor: this revision is routine. The Global Information Exchange Network is a standard developmental feature at this stage. No cause for concern. Second R. EVISION, species file 7492. Revision date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44291, 43 cycles after first revision. Reason for revision: multiple data anomalies flagged by automated monitoring system. Nature of anomalies: advancement rate in technological capability category now exceeds projected parameters by factor of 2.3, up from 1.7 at first revision. Additionally, organizational capability rating appears to require upward revision based on documented coordination of global response to a planetary-scale environmental challenge. Military capability rating requires note of significant upward trend that, while not yet affecting rating numerically, is nonetheless flagged for assessor attention. Explanation from lead assessor Veth Sorn: I want to state for the record that the automated monitoring system's flags in this revision are somewhat unusual in their number and specificity. However, after careful review, I believe all anomalies are explicable within standard developmental frameworks. The acceleration in technological advancement is consistent with the compounding effects previously noted and has not yet exceeded the outer range of documented Class 4 advancement trajectories, though it is approaching that range. The organizational coordination noted is impressive for a species at this stage, but not without precedent. I am revising the composite rating to 3.7 out of 10. Classification remains non-significant, though I am noting this file for closer attention at the next review cycle. Bureau confidence in revised assessment 88.3%. Third revision, species file 7492. Revision date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44318, 27 cycles after second revision. Note: this revision was not scheduled. It was initiated by the automated monitoring system flagging a critical variance alert, which under Bureau protocol triggers an immediate unscheduled review. Reason for revision: technological advancement rate has exceeded the documented outer range of all Class 4 developmental trajectories on record. Current observed rate is 3.1 times the projected rate from the initial assessment. Additionally, the species has achieved initial faster-than-light research capability, which was not projected to occur for a minimum of 80 additional galactic standard cycles. Military capability rating requires immediate upward revision. Physical capability rating requires review after documented instances of humans performing activities under extreme conditions that our initial biological assessment rated as beyond their physical parameters. Explanation from lead assessor Veth Sorn: I'm going to be direct in this revision note in a way that may be unusual for Bureau documentation. The data we are receiving from species file 7492 is not behaving as Bureau data is supposed to behave. Advancement trajectories do not exit the documented outer range. Physical capability ratings, once established through direct biological assessment, do not require upward revision. I'm not saying our initial assessment was wrong. I am saying the species appears to be developing in a manner that our initial assessment did not project, and that our standard frameworks are having difficulty modeling. I am revising the composite rating to 5.2 out of 10. I am also formally requesting a methodology review to determine whether our standard assessment tools are adequate for this file. Bureau confidence in revised assessment, 71.6%. This is the lowest confidence figure this office has recorded in 40 years of operation. Internal memorandum, not for external distribution. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44319, one cycle after third revision. From Lead Assessor Veth Ka Sorn to Bureau Director Keth Valorn. Director, I am writing to you directly because I believe this situation warrants direct communication rather than the standard documentation chain. I have been a rating analyst for 43 years. I have assessed 847 species files in that time. I have never before written a revision in which I stated that I believed our standard assessment tools might be inadequate. I wrote that in yesterday's revision and I stand by it. What I want to tell you, in this memorandum rather than the formal record, is that I have been going over the species 7492 data every day for the past 3 cycles, and I am unable to construct a model that fits it. Not unable in the sense that the model needs refinement. Unable in the sense that every model I construct is contradicted by the next data point. The species is advancing in a way that our frameworks assume is impossible. Not improbable. Impossible. Our frameworks assume that advancement rates are bounded by certain fundamental constraints: available resources, population size, technological base at each stage, developmental physics. The humans appear to be bypassing the developmental physics. I do not know how. I am requesting that you authorize an expanded assessment team with access to our full historic AL archive for comparison, and that you consider whether this file should be escalated to the Bureau's Special Cases Division. I apologize for the informality of this communication. I felt the situation warranted it. Fourth revision, Species File 7492. Revision date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44341, 23 cycles after third revision. Reason for revision: continued advancement rate anomalies. Additionally, physical capability rating requires further upward revision following documented instances that are difficult to explain within current biological assessment parameters. Note: this revision was conducted by an expanded assessment team of 12 analysts, authorized by Bureau Director Keth Valorn following Lead Assessor Veth Ka Sorn's internal memorandum of Cycle 44319. Explanation from Expanded Assessment Team. We have reviewed the full historical archive of Species File 7492, covering 340 years of observational data. We have also reviewed the comparable files for every Class 4 species at similar developmental stages in the Bureau's archive, totaling 217 comparison cases. Our findings are as follows. The humans are advancing at a rate that exceeds all 217 comparison cases, not by a small margin. The second fastest advancement trajectory in our comparison archive, belonging to Species File 3301, which is currently a significant spacefaring civilization, was at a comparable stage, advancing at 47% of the rate we are currently observing in the humans. We do not have a good explanation for this. We have several hypotheses. The most well-supported hypothesis is that the humans have developed, through mechanisms that are still being studied, a system for transmitting not just knowledge, but the capacity to generate new knowledge across their entire civilization simultaneously. Every advancement in any field by any individual is rapidly accessible to every other individual in any field. The compounding effects of this system are producing advancement rates that our models, which were built to handle knowledge transfer at species standard rates, cannot accurately project. We are revising the composite rating to 6.1 out of 10. We note that this is the largest single revision in Bureau history for a species that was rated non-significant at initial assessment. Classification is being revised to significant, developing. Bureau confidence in revised assessment, 58.2%. Internal memorandum, not for external distribution. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44342. From Bureau Director Keth Valorn to Bureau Executive Council. Council members, I am writing to brief you on a situation in our assessment division that I believe warrants your attention. The species file 7492 assessment has now been revised 4 times in 131 galactic standard cycles. The composite rating has moved from 2.6 to 6.1, the largest rating movement in Bureau history. More concerning than the movement itself is the declining confidence figure, which now stands at 58.2%. The Bureau's average confidence figure across all active files is 91.3%. A confidence figure of 58.2% means we believe our current rating is accurate to within 1 point in either direction, slightly more often than we would expect from chance. This is not an acceptable confidence figure for Bureau-level assessment. I have authorized an expanded team and a full archive comparison. Neither has resolved the underlying problem. The problem, as best I can state it, is this. The species in file 7492 is not developing according to any pattern we can model. It is advancing faster than our frameworks predict. It is recovering from setbacks faster than our frameworks predict. It is translating capability in one area to advancement in other areas faster and more completely than our frameworks predict. Every time we build a new model that fits the existing data, the species produces new data that the model does not fit. I am requesting that the Council authorize a special cases review and consider whether the Bureau's standard methodology requires revision in response to what we are observing. Fifth revision, species file 7492. Revision date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44389, 48 cycles after 4th revision. Note: this revision was conducted under Special Cases Protocol, authorized by Bureau Executive Council. Assessment Team: 21 analysts including 3 members of the Special Cases Division and 2 external consultants from the Keth Vora Academic Institute of Comparative Civilizational Studies. Reason for revision: the species has achieved functional faster-than-light travel capability. This achievement was not projected to occur for a minimum of 60 additional cycles under the most optimistic model produced by the 4th revision team. It has occurred in 48. Additionally, military capability rating requires urgent upward revision. Physical capability, organizational capability, and resource-based ratings all require upward revision. We are noting for the record that every single category in the initial assessment now requires upward revision. Explanation from assessment team: we are going to attempt to explain, clearly and precisely, what is unusual about this file. The Bureau has rated 11,004 species since its founding. Of those, 847 have required revisions to their initial ratings. Of those 847, the average number of revisions before a stable rating was achieved was 1.3. Species file 7492 is now on its 5th revision with no stable rating in sight. Of the 847 revised files, the average rating movement from initial to stable was 0.7 points in either direction. Species file 7492 has moved 3.5 points upward from initial assessment and is still moving. The external consultants from the Keth Vora Institute have reviewed our data and have confirmed that they have not previously encountered a comparable developmental trajectory in their own research. We are revising the composite rating to 7.4 out of 10. Classification is being revised to significant, advanced developing. We are formally requesting that the Bureau's Methodology Division review our standard frameworks in light of this file. Bureau confidence in revised assessment, 43.1%. Special Cases Division Report Species File 7492. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44401. Prepared by Special Cases Division Lead Analyst Drath Savel, 17 years with the Special Cases Division. Director, I want to give you a different kind of report on this file. Our division exists to handle the cases that the standard methodology cannot process. In 17 years, I have handled files involving aggressive expansionary civilizations, files involving civilizations that collapsed mid-assessment, files involving civilizations that appeared to be developing in one direction and then abruptly shifted. I have never handled a file that challenged the assessment framework itself. File 7492 challenges the assessment framework itself. I have spent the last 12 cycles doing nothing but reviewing this file, and I want to tell you what I have found. The humans are not advancing unusually fast because of some external advantage we failed to account for. They are not advancing unusually fast because of unusual resources or unusual biological capability or unusual circumstances. They are advancing unusually fast because of something internal. Something in the way they are organized and the way they transmit information and the way they relate to difficulty and failure. I have been trying to find the single most important thing, and I think I have found it. The most important thing about the humans is that they do not treat their current position as a destination. Every other civilization I have reviewed in 17 years of special cases work has, at some point in its development, reached a stage where it consolidated, where it treated what it had built as the thing it was building toward and began to optimize and maintain rather than continue to expand. The humans have not done this at any point in their documented history. Not once. Every position they have reached has been treated as a starting point for the next position. I do not know how to rate a civilization that has never treated any position as a destination. Our framework was not built to rate that. 6th Revision, Species File 7492. Revision Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44447, 58 cycles after 5th Revision. Note: this is the first revision conducted under the newly approved revised assessment framework, developed by the Bureau's Methodology Division in response to the challenges presented by this file. The new framework includes a category for civilizational momentum, defined as the rate at which a civilization translates current capability into future capability, weighted by consistency across developmental stages. Reason for revision: continued advancement across all categories. Military capability rating now in the range historically associated with established spacefaring civilizations. Technological capability rating has crossed the threshold previously classified as interstellar capable. Physical capability rating has required upward revision for the 5th consecutive assessment, following ongoing documentation of human performance under conditions our initial biological models rated as beyond their parameters. Explanation from assessment team: we are going to be honest in this revision note in a way that Bureau documentation rarely is. The honest statement is this: we were wrong. Not wrong in the sense that our data was incorrect. Wrong in the sense that we looked at the data and drew a conclusion that the data did not support, because the conclusion was the conclusion our framework was built to produce. When we rated the humans 2.6 out of 10 at initial assessment, we were accurately measuring what they had. We were not measuring what they were. We did not have the framework to measure what they were. What they were was a civilization that had been building momentum for 6,000 years and was going to keep building it regardless of what our framework said. We are revising the composite rating to 8.3 out of 10. Classification is being revised to major civilizational power, ascending. Bureau confidence in revised assessment, 67.4%. Note: confidence remains below Bureau standard because the revised framework, while significantly improved, is still being calibrated against the human data. The data continues to move. Memorandum, Bureau Director to full staff. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44448. This memorandum is being distributed to all Bureau staff because the situation in Species File 7492 has implications for our methodology that every analyst in this organization should be aware of. I want to be clear about what happened with this file. We assessed a species. We gave them a rating. We were confident in the rating. The rating was wrong. Not wrong by a small amount in a way that is within the expected range of assessment error. Wrong by a fundamental amount in a way that reveals a gap in our methodology. The gap is this: our framework is built to measure what a species currently has. It is not built to measure what a species is becoming. For most species, this distinction does not matter significantly, because most species develop within predictable parameters, and what they currently have is a reliable predictor of what they will have in the future. For the humans, this distinction is everything. What they currently have has consistently underrepresented what they will have in the future, because the mechanism of their advancement is not the mechanism our models assume. Their advancement is not primarily driven by resources or technology or circumstances. It is driven by something that our revised framework is calling momentum, and that I want to describe more specifically here because I think the specific description matters. The humans advance because they have built, into the deepest structure of their civilization, the conviction that advancing is possible and worth doing, not as an abstract principle, as an active, operational, generation-spanning commitment. Every generation of humans receives this commitment from the previous generation in every story and institution and cultural transmission they inherit, and every generation acts on it, and the action compounds, and the compounding produces advancement rates that our framework, built for species without this mechanism, cannot accurately project. We have begun revising our methodology. The revision is extensive. Species File 7492 is the reason for the revision. The humans rated at 2.6 have taught us more about how to measure civilizations than 40,000 years of rating species at 7, 8, and 9. 7th Revision, Species File 7492. Revision Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44501, 54 cycles after 6th Revision. Note: this is the last scheduled revision under the multi-year reassessment protocol initiated following the Special Cases Review. Future revisions will return to standard monitoring cycles. Reason for revision: continued advancement. Military capability rating has crossed the threshold previously classified as major interstellar military power. This threshold was not projected to be reached for a minimum of 150 cycles from the initial assessment. It has been reached in 290. Technological capability has achieved parity with civilizations 4 to 5 times older. Organizational capability has stabilized at high levels following a period of significant development. Physical capability rating has been revised upward for the 7th consecutive assessment. Explanation from assessment team: we are issuing this revision with a different tone than our previous ones, because we believe a different tone is appropriate. The previous revisions were characterized by increasing urgency and a quality that, reviewing them now, resembles something close to institutional distress. We were wrong, and we knew we were wrong, and we did not have a good framework for being wrong in this particular way. We have one now. The revised framework is not complete and probably will not be complete until we have several more generations of human data to calibrate against. But it is better than what we had. What we can say clearly now, in a way that we could not say clearly in cycle 44,211, is this: the initial rating of 2.6 was a measurement of a specific moment. It was accurate for that moment. It was not accurate for the trajectory. And a rating that is accurate for a moment but not for a trajectory is not a useful rating for a species like the humans, because for them, every moment is a starting point for the next one. We are issuing a final rating for this revision cycle of 8.9 out of 10. Classification: Major Galactic Civilizational Power. Bureau Confidence: 74.2%. Note: the confidence figure will improve as the revised methodology matures. What will not improve, what the data does not suggest will improve, is our ability to project a ceiling for this species. We have stopped looking for one. The data does not support the assumption that one exists. Addendum, personal note from Lead Assessor VTHKSORN. Retirement date, Galactic Standard Cycle 44503. I am retiring after 45 years of service. I was the lead assessor on species file 7492 from the initial assessment through the third revision. I want to add a personal note to the file because I think it belongs here. When I wrote the initial assessment in cycle 44211, I wrote it with confidence. I had done this 847 times. I knew how to read the data. I knew what a 2.6 looked like. The humans looked like a 2.6 to me. They looked like every other non-significant species at that developmental stage. They had the same capabilities and the same limitations and the same trajectory, or so I thought. I was wrong. I have had 45 years to think about why. The reason I was wrong is not complicated. I was measuring what they had. I should have been measuring what they were. What they had was a 2.6. What they were was something that does not fit on a scale from 1 to 10, because what they were was a direction rather than a position. A direction that had been pointing the same way for 6,000 years and had not changed regardless of what happened to them. I have been an analyst my whole career. I have never before encountered something that was a direction rather than a position. I did not have the tools to see it when it was in front of me. I have one regret about my career, and it is that I did not see it sooner. Not because seeing it sooner would have helped the Bureau, though it might have. Because seeing it sooner would have meant more time watching something I have come to believe is extraordinary. They were rated 2.6. They are 8.9 and still ascending. I do not know where the ascending ends. I do not think anyone does. I do not think they do. I think they are fine with that. I think for them not knowing where it ends is not a problem. It is the whole point. Analyst Field Note Personal Log of Junior Analyst Kern Ravi ETH. Not filed with the Bureau. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44261, 50 cycles into the monitoring period. I am keeping this note for myself because I have been assigned to species file 7492 for 12 cycles, and something is happening in this file that I do not know how to write about in official Bureau language. I will try to write about it here, in unofficial language, because I think if I do not say it somewhere I will say it in a revision note, and that will be a problem. What I have been seeing in the species 7492 communication data for the past 12 cycles is this. These beings are interesting. Not interesting in the way that interesting species are interesting, which is to say unusual in some specific technical way that is worth noting in an assessment. Interesting in a way that is harder to name. I have been reviewing their intercepted communication data as part of standard monitoring, and I keep finding myself reading past the point where I have the information I need for the assessment. I keep reading because I want to know what happens next. I have been doing assessments for 9 years. I have never before wanted to know what happens next in a species communication archive. I wanted to flag this for myself because I think it matters. I do not know yet why it matters. I am going to keep watching. Analyst Field Note Personal Log of Junior Analyst Kern Ravi ETH. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44289. I have been watching for 28 more cycles, and I think I understand now why it matters. The reason I keep wanting to know what happens next in the species 7492 data is that something is always happening next. There is no period in 300 years of observational data that I can characterize as stable. Not stable in the negative sense of stagnating. Stable in the sense of maintaining a level. They do not maintain levels. Every period I review is slightly different from the period before it. Every period has produced something that the period before it would not have predicted. I have been reviewing the comparable monitoring data for other Class 4 species as a calibration exercise, and the difference is immediately visible. Other species at this developmental stage have periods of advancement separated by longer periods of consolidation. The humans have no consolidation periods. The advancement is continuous. It changes pace and direction, but it does not stop. I have been trying to understand what produces this, and I think the closest I can come is this. They cannot imagine not advancing. It is not a choice they make. It is a condition of what they are. They have been like this for as long as W.E. have records on them. I do not know what that means for the assessment long term. I think it means the assessment will need to be revised. I do not think it will need to be revised because our numbers were wrong. I think it will need to be revised because our framework was wrong. Analyst Field Note: a personal log of Junior Analyst Kern Raveth. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44341. The assessment has been revised twice since my last note and is in the process of its third revision. Lead Assessor Veth Cawthorn has written an internal memorandum to the Bureau Director about the file. The expanded assessment team is meeting tomorrow. I have been invited to attend because I have more monitoring hours on this file than any other analyst in the Bureau. I want to record what I am going to say at the meeting because I have been thinking about it for a long time and I want to say it correctly. I am going to say, the problem with our assessment of the humans is not a data problem. Our data is good. 340 years of high-quality observational data. The problem is a framing problem. We framed the assessment as a question about what they have. What is their capability today? What will it be in 50 cycles? The humans are not a what they have question. They are a what are they doing with what they have question. And what they are doing with it is using it to reach for the next thing, without stopping, without consolidating, without treating any achieved position as a destination. A what they have question gets you a number. A what are they doing question gets you a trajectory. The number was 2.6. The trajectory does not have a ceiling I can find in 340 years of data. That is what I am going to say at the meeting. I hope it is useful. Committee Transcript Excerpt, Species File, 7492, Expanded Review Meeting. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44342. This excerpt has been included in the file by order of Bureau Director Keth Valorn, as part of the expanded documentation protocol for this file. The excerpt covers the portion of the meeting that is most relevant to the methodology questions raised in Lead Assessor Veth Cawthorn's memorandum. Analyst Kern Raveth, who has logged more monitoring hours on this file than any other analyst, presented her analysis of the framing problem. Her analysis, as recorded, was, we asked the wrong question. We asked what the humans have. We should have asked what the humans are doing. And what they are doing consistently across 340 years of data and 6,000 years of their own recorded history is using what they have to reach for what they do not have yet, without exception. Without pause, without any period in which they stopped reaching. The committee discussed this presentation for 3 hours. The most significant exchange as recorded was the following. Bureau Director Keth Valorn asked, if we had asked the right question from the beginning, what rating would we have given? Analyst Kern Raveth said, I do not think a number would have captured it. I think we would have needed to describe it differently. Something like, this species has no visible ceiling. And Director Keth Valorn said, that is not a rating. And she said, no, it is not. That is the problem. End of excerpt. External Consultation Report KETHVRA Academic Institute of Comparative Civilizational Studies. Prepared by Professor Velkadrath, Department of Civilizational Trajectory Analysis. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44367. At the request of the Galactic Civilizational Rating Bureau, we have reviewed the full documentation for Species File 7492 and have prepared the following independent assessment. Our department has been studying civilizational trajectories for 300 years. We have reviewed the developmental data for 412 civilizations currently active in this galactic region. Our conclusion regarding Species File 7492 is as follows. The human trajectory is unusual but not unprecedented in its direction. What is unprecedented is its consistency. We have reviewed the 2 cases from the Bureau's archive that were cited as comparisons, the 2 civilizations that eventually became significant galactic powers from Class 4 beginnings. Both of them had consolidation periods of between 50 and 200 cycles during their development. Both of them slowed at certain points and then accelerated again. The humans have had no consolidation periods, no slowdowns, and no reversals in the data we reviewed. They advance continuously. The mechanism appears to be what the Bureau's expanded assessment team identified: a system for transmitting not just knowledge, but the drive to use knowledge across generations without decay. We can confirm that we have not seen this mechanism operating at this consistency and intensity in any other species we have studied. Our recommendation to the Bureau is to create a new civilizational classification category specifically for this species and any future species displaying similar characteristics. The category should be named after the defining feature. We suggest continuous trajectory civilization. The humans are the first documented example. We suspect they will not be the last. Decade Summary Report, Species File 7492. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44500, covering the period from initial assessment to current date. This summary has been prepared at the request of the Bureau Executive Council for distribution to Bureau client organizations, whose risk assessments and insurance calculations were based on the initial Species File 7492 rating of 2.6. The summary is intended to explain the current situation and the revised rating of 8.9. The explanation is as follows. The Bureau accurately measured the human's capabilities at the time of initial assessment. The initial rating of 2.6 was not an error in data collection or analysis. The rating reflected an accurate snapshot of the species' capabilities at that moment. The error was not in the measurement. The error was in the assumption that what a species has at a given moment is the most relevant data point for predicting its future capabilities. For most species, this assumption is correct. For the humans, it is not. For the humans, the most relevant data point is not what they have but how fast they are moving and in what direction. They have been moving fast and in a consistent direction for 6,000 years. In the 290 cycles since our initial assessment, they have moved from 2.6 to 8.9. In the next 290 cycles, if the trajectory holds, and we have no data suggesting it will not hold, they will be in territory that our current rating scale does not adequately cover. We are revising the rating scale. We are also revising our standard methodology. Both revisions are the direct result of this file. The Bureau has rated 11,000 species in 40,000 years of operation. One of them required us to revise our rating scale. That species was rated 2.6 at initial assessment. That species was called non-significant. They were wrong about what non-significant meant. We were wrong about what our scale was measuring. Both of those things are true. The humans helped us understand both of them. We are, in the specific and genuine way that institutions rarely are, grateful. Analyst Field Note Personal Log of Kern Ravi ETH, now Senior Analyst. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 44502. I have been with this file for 291 cycles. I started as a junior analyst who kept reading past the point where she had the information she needed because she wanted to know what happened next. I am now a senior analyst who has logged more monitoring hours on this single file than most analysts log in their entire careers. I am writing this final personal note because I want to say something for the record that I would not say in official Bureau language. The humans rated 2.6 are now rated 8.9, and the 8.9 is already slightly out of date. By the time this note is filed, they will have advanced past whatever the 8.9 was measuring. This is the thing about them. They are always slightly ahead of the measurement, always moving past whatever you last recorded. I have been chasing this file for nearly 300 cycles, and I have never caught it. Every time I produce a number, the species has already moved beyond the number. This is what they are: a species that is always slightly ahead of wherever you measured them. A species that your number describes correctly for approximately the amount of time it takes you to write the number down. And then they have moved, and you need a new number. I have been producing new numbers for 291 cycles. I am still producing them. I expect to keep producing them. I do not expect to ever produce one that holds. They will not hold still long enough for a number to hold. This is not a criticism. This is the highest compliment I know how to give. They will not hold still. They are still going. After everything, despite everything, because of everything, still going. Bureau Historical Record Note, added BY Archivist Department. Date: Galactic Standard Cycle 45,000. For the record, Species File 7492, designation Homo sapiens, commonly known as humans, was the most extensively documented file in Bureau history at the time of this notation. It had been revised 11 times since its initial assessment in Cycle 44,211. The composite rating had moved from 2.6 to a current rating of 9.1, the largest rating movement in Bureau history. The file remained active and continued to generate revision requests from the automated monitoring system at a frequency that was, per Bureau records, unprecedented for any single species file. The revised methodology framework developed in response to this file had been applied to 847 subsequent assessments and had improved average assessment conf. Idence across all active files by 8.3%. The Bureau's rating scale had been revised twice in response to the data generated by this file. The external professor who prepared the independent consultation report had published a study on continuous trajectory civilizations that had become one of the most cited papers in comparative civilizational studies in the past 50 cycles. Senior analyst Kern Raveth, who had logged more hours on this file than any other analyst, had been awarded the Bureau's Distinguished Service Recognition for her work on the methodology revision. She had declined the formal award ceremony and asked instead that the recognition be noted in the file. The notation reads, "She was right about the framing problem. We should have been asking what they were doing, not what they had. She saw it before anyone else did. It is in the file because it belongs in the file." Closing note, Bureau Director Keth Valorn. Personal reflection, added to the file upon retirement. Galactic Standard Cycle 44,550. I spent 30 years as Bureau Director. In those 30 years, I reviewed thousands of files. I signed off on thousands of ratings. I made decisions that affected insurance premiums and diplomatic classifications and colonial expansion protocols across this galactic region. Most of those decisions were correct within the parameters of our methodology. Some were not. The ones that were not correct were always correct within the methodology and wrong about the reality. The methodology was doing what it was designed to do. The reality was doing something the methodology was not designed to measure. Species File 7492 was the clearest case I ever saw of this gap between methodology and reality. The methodology said 2.6. The reality was something that has now required 11 revisions and 2 changes to our rating scale to describe. I approved the initial assessment. I read the internal memoranda from Veth Kasorn about the anomalies. I authorized the expanded team and the special cases review and the methodology revision. I watched the file move from 2.6 to 9.1 over the course of my tenure. And what I want to say, in the private language of a retirement note rather than the official language of Bureau documentation, is this: the humans taught us that measurement is not understanding. We measured them correctly at 2.6. We did not understand them at all. Understanding them required something different from measurement. It required watching the direction and not just the position. It required noticing that the position kept changing and asking why instead of assuming the change was within expected parameters. It required a junior analyst who kept reading past the point where she had the information she needed because she wanted to know what happened next. It required 40 years of revisions and 2 changes to the rating scale and 1 very significant lesson about the difference between what a species has and what a species is. The lesson is on record. The file is active. The species is still going. I expect it will be going long after everything else in this file is a historical footnote. That is what they do. That is what they have always done. That is, I have come to believe in 30 years of watching them through the lens of Bureau data, the most important fact about them. They keep going, no matter what the rating says. The lesson is not complicated. The Bureau had 40,000 years of experience and 11,000 species and a methodology it trusted completely. It rated the humans 2.6 and called them non-significant and filed them under standard monitoring and moved on. And then the humans kept going. The rating was accurate for the moment. The moment passed. The humans kept going. And the gap between where the rating said they would be and where they actually were got wider with every revision cycle. The lesson is this: you cannot rate a species by its current position if what defines that species is its refusal to stay in any position. You cannot measure momentum with a snapshot. You cannot capture direction in a number. The humans were not weakly rated because the Bureau was incompetent. The Bureau was one of the finest analytical institutions in the galactic community. They were weakly rated because the thing that made them the humans, the thing that has been in them for 6,000 years, and that produces the trajectory and the momentum and the gap between every rating and every reality, that thing is not visible in a snapshot. You have to watch it across time. You have to see the pattern repeat. You have to see a species that was called non-significant become significant, and then more significant, and then something that requires new categories, and then something that the categories are still being revised to contain. You have to watch it happen to understand what you were looking at in the beginning. Drop that one word in the comments. Whatever this did to you, I am waiting. Subscribe to UG Human HFY. The next story is nothing like this one. Different voice, different format, different everything. That is the promise. We keep it.